So, a few weeks ago I heard something that really piqued my interest. Tony Cascarino, an ex-Marseille player who not only faced Zidane in his younger years but has gone on record saying that he considers him to be the greatest of all time, has also said that Jude Bellingham reminds him of Zidane like no other player he's ever watched. In fact, he has said that he believes he has the potential to surpass the French legend. I don't think I have to explain how impactful these words are. We are talking about the greatest midfielder of all time. As Cascarino would say, Bellingham and Zidane are the same height, they have similar builds, they share that same characteristic long stride, and they're so incredibly elegant they seem invulnerable to any kind of pressure from the defenders. And personally, that's exactly what I saw as well, but just like Cascarino would go on to say, the thing is, Zidane was never blisteringly quick. That was one of the few things he lacked, and Bellingham, he has that. He might not be just as technically gifted as Zidane, but he's faster and more versatile. And you know what's ironic? He finished that whole speech by saying that one of the things Bellingham has to improve in order to get closer to Zidane is his heading ability. Well, Bellingham has already scored 4 goals for Real, and 2 of them were headers. And the coincidences don't end there. When they asked Bellingham who was his idol and role model, he said Zidane. When they asked Zidane about Bellingham, he described him as a modern-age version of himself. When Bellingham had to pick the number of his shirt, Vallejo gave up Zidane's number 5 so Jude could have it, claiming that if anyone deserved it, it was him. And even more hairy than all of that, when Bellingham scored his first goal for Real, people were quick to notice that it resembled a goal Zidane had scored for the same club. And to wrap up all of this, there are rumors that Zidane could be back training Real next year. Imagine Zidane coaching Bellingham. It would be like coaching himself. Who knows how much better Bellingham could get? He's only 20 years old, already a $100 million player. He seems to have his head in the right place and the potential of becoming the greatest British midfielder of all time. I sincerely think that one day children will want to pretend to be Bellingham the same way he used to pretend to be Zidane when he was a kid. Actually, to be fair, until about the age of 7, Bellingham strangely did not care about football, despite his father Mark Bellingham being a non-league football legend, playing for 20 different clubs and scoring over 700 goals in his career. In fact, he only began playing football because his father once set up a youth team and needed more players. But as you may imagine, they were all shocked to see that Bellingham was an absolute natural at the sport. Only a year later, he was already joining Birmingham's academy, and with each year that passed, he began scoring more and more goals. By the time he turned 10, he was already so good that the coaches wanted him to play with the older kids, but naturally, being a child, he threw a fit saying he wanted to stay in the same team as his friends. So they set up a whole thing where since both teams played at the same time every weekend, he would play half the match with each team so he could start getting used to playing against tougher opposition. And it was all good until one day he came to play the second half with the kids his age and ended up scoring 15 goals. Yes, 15 goals in a single half of football. After that, he just couldn't argue with the coaches anymore. Even he knew he had to be moved up, and well, from there on out, he just kept on breaking records. At 13, he was already playing for England's under-15s and he was even made captain. At 15, he was already playing with Birmingham's under-23s, 8 years older than him. By 16, he already caught the eye of the first-team coaches, and once Pep Clotet took over as manager, he was instantly brought to the main team. As he went on to say, "The moment I saw him, I knew he had to be there. Have I ever seen a 16-year-old like him? Only once. His name was Lionel Messi." And he wasn't even the only one who saw this potential. That same year, 442 magazine listed Jude as one of the 50 most exciting teenagers in English football. And sure, he was literally only 49th on the list, but he was also younger than anyone else on it, and had attracted interest from damn near every club in Europe. Add to this a call-up to the Syrenka Cup with England's under-17s where he captained his team to the trophy, even scoring in the final and being named player of the tournament. And by the time he was back with Birmingham, he was breaking a 49-year-old record to become Birmingham City's youngest ever debutant at 16 years and 38 days. And the craziest thing is this was no novelty, no handout. When they asked his teammates about him, they said, "He's already the best player in training every day. No player in the team can match Jude, he is simply a cut above." Again, these are grown adults, professional football players, talking about a literal child. Yeah, Regardless, as he kept going, things only looked more hopeful. On his second match, despite a heavy 3-0 defeat, he was named man of the match. On his third game, finally getting to play at home, he came in late with the team trailing behind, and he not only inspired the comeback, but made sure to score the winning goal himself, rightfully becoming the youngest goal scorer in the history of the club. Add to this another goal in the next match, and by the end of the month, he was already being named the best young player in the league. And of course, with the hype building up, it was also then that Manchester United first went all in for his signing, reportedly offering £20 million and even bringing out Cantona to give him a tour of the Carrington Training Centre, but Bellingham still opted to remain at Birmingham for a while. Then, even with the season getting disrupted by the pandemic, nothing could stop him, and once football resumed, he even assisted a late equaliser that saved Birmingham from going down to the relegation zone with 2 games to go. By the time the season was over, obviously United came back trying to persuade him to join them, but as Birmingham CEO would say, United were offering him more money than anyone else, maybe twice as much. He was guaranteed millions in the bank, and he still didn't take it. Right there, I knew this was no average player. And so, instead, impressed by the development of Jadon Sancho over the previous years, Bellingham opted to join Dortmund instead for a fee of £25 million, making him the most expensive 17-year-old in history. But here's where some controversy arrived. You see, upon his departure, Birmingham shocked everyone by retiring his jersey. Look, not only is that not really a thing that happens in English football too often, but he was a 17-year-old who played 44 matches for the club, meaning that the fans were a bit ruthless, calling Birmingham a tin pot club, mocking them in every way imaginable for this strange decision. However, I gotta say, even though back then this did seem weird on paper, looking back now it's clear that Bellingham is the best player to ever play for them. No one would be too upset if West Ham retired Lampard's number, so in a way, I think Birmingham were just ahead of their time. They were the first to realize that sooner or later, Bellingham would be one of the greatest English players of all time. And once at Dortmund, they were pretty quick to catch on to that same thing, with Thomas Delaney even noting him and Haaland are similar. They have this loose wire which changes them completely, this mentality of winning everywhere all the time. And so, rightfully on his debut for the club, having just recently turned 17, he made sure to score, becoming the youngest ever player to do so. 5 days later, he assisted Reina against Mönchengladbach, and as quick as that, he was already being named Bundesliga Rookie of the Month. Things come easy when you're just as good as Jude Bellingham. And so, 2 months later, he was called up to the English national team for the first time, becoming the 3rd youngest to ever play for England. For comparison, he was a full year younger than Michael Owen, who is often talked about as one of the most precocious wonder kids in history. Still, ironically, he would debut against the Republic of Ireland, who he was also eligible to play for through his dad's side of the family, so yeah, a bit awkward, but moving on. Despite starting the year on the sidelines with a foot injury, he was quick to get back on top of things, not just scoring against Man City as Dortmund got knocked out of the Champions League, but also winning the German Cup, his first ever trophy, the award for Best Newcomer of the season, and being named in the squad for the 2020 Euros, becoming the youngest player from any nation to ever take part in the competition. Still, not only did he barely get any minutes, but 5 days later Kozlowski beat his record, so, take that with a grain of salt. Regardless, his second season would start with second coach René Maric bringing up the comparisons once more, claiming he was the perfect mix of Gerrard and Zidane, and then witnessing as with the departures of Haaland and Sancho, Bellingham quickly became the team's star player, taking on the role of a leader and becoming more and more vocal, at one point even getting into trouble after a controversial VAR decision, calling out the referee over the fact he had been involved in a match-fixing scandal before, saying, "You give a guy like that the biggest game in Germany? What did you expect?" Which obviously the FA didn't take too kindly to, fining him €40,000. But to be fair, I'm pretty sure everyone agrees with him, so fair play, Jude. Add to this the fact he had put up 2 assists in that same game after already getting on the score sheet in his Super Cup match against Bayern, as well as some seriously good performances in the Champions League, and by the end of the year as Pedri took the Copa Trophy and the Golden Boy Award for the best young player in the world, Bellingham took the second spot in both occasions, which I'm sure stinged a bit, but come on, Pedri is nearly a full year older than him, and this was still a massive achievement. And well, at least by the end of the season, with 20 goal contributions in 44 matches, despite the fact that times even played in a defensive midfield role, he was named in the Bundesliga Team of the Season for the first time. And just like that, we arrived at his final season at Dortmund, where having just turned 19 years of age, he was handed the captain's armband, becoming the youngest captain in the history of the Bundesliga, and sending him on a crazy run that saw him hit the best form of his career up till that moment, starting by going on a run of 8 goals and 7 assists in 21 matches. Which only sounds crazier once I mention that midway through that, he played his first ever World Cup. So with Calvin Phillips struggling for minutes at Man City, Southgate decided to call on Bellingham to fill that void, and well, it paid off. Right on that first match, Bellingham scored the opening goal and was involved in 2 more. In the last 16, he opened the score with a great assist for Jordan Henderson, and then he started a play that led to Kane's goal. At all of this, a great performance versus France as England got knocked out, and who knows what could have happened had Kane not missed his penalty, but one thing is sure. Jude Bellingham was leading his team in everything from shots created to blocks, defensive actions, progressive passes and even dribbles. It wasn't even that arguable. The 19-year-old had been the best player on the team, and with the whole world watching, it was once again obvious that his team wouldn't hold on to him for much longer. And so, following 2 months where the most memorable moment came as Jude learned from his former mistakes, addressing another controversial refereeing moment by pretty much pulling off Mourinho's iconic "I prefer not to speak." Dortmund went on to spend 3 months on top of the table, only for Jude to then be sidelined in the final match of the season with a knee injury, watching as his teammates failed to beat the mighty Mainz, virtually handing out the title to rivals Bayern Munich in what was the club's best chance at a title in 11 years. Well, let's just say Bellingham first left the pitch in tears and then began planning a way to leave the club for good. Regardless, it has to be said, it was a phenomenal season for Bellingham. Even without the Bundesliga title, the 19-year-old not only led the league in both dribbles and progressive carries, but he was also top 3 when it came to tackles in the final third, and he even scored 14 goals, more than twice as much as he had managed in any other season of his career, which was enough to earn him not only the league's Player of the Year award, but also compliments from both Mourinho and Guardiola, with the first saying he loved everything about Bellingham and the other saying regarding his age that he has to be lying. It's unbelievable what a fantastic player. And so, rightfully, after a long back and forth between Jude and Liverpool, Real Madrid pulled the trigger and paid $103 million, which could go up to 134 with the add-ons, to make Jude Bellingham a Galactico at the age of only 20. As Peter Drury would say, Bellingham from Birmingham to the Bernabeu. In fact, Birmingham were lucky enough to have a sell-on clause, getting $6 million from this transfer. But yeah, though everyone expected him to succeed, after all, with 15 goal contributions in 1800 minutes of playing time in the Champions League, he should fit right in at Real Madrid. No one expected what would happen next. As of today, Bellingham has gone above and beyond what anyone expected from his debut season at Real, scoring on his debut, then getting 2 goals and an assist in his second match, and heading a late winner in his third match to become the 3rd ever player to score in all of his first 3 matches for the club, only matched by Schneider and the great Cristiano Ronaldo. And not only that, but he has been named man of the match in every single match he played for Real Madrid so far. All of his goal contributions came when Madrid were level or trailing behind, earning them 5 out of the 9 points they have collected so far, and quickly establishing himself as one of the most loved players in the squad. As he said it himself, "I'm already 10 times better than I was last season," and we all hope that he will only get better. Though I have to say this, his father ruptured his ACL twice over his career, and those things tend to be genetics, so be careful, Jude.